Hello, welcome to the next instalment of the Blueprint Blether. We're just at Raeburn Place today. Wonderful backdrop, a little bit of archery going on in the background, so if any arrows come flying our way, we'll try and get a shout from Callum. Great to see clubs diversifying the use of their facilities, and today's topic, basically we're going to chat about Mini Rugby. Obviously a huge part of our game, huge amount of players involved, huge amount of coaches, and hugely important to the future of rugby in Scotland and around the world, I suppose. We've got James Wade back on. My name's Scott Riddell, and we're also really lucky to be joined by Iain Berthinussen from Bats. So, Bertie, how are you doing? How are you getting on?
Yeah, good Scotty, good James, thanks. Excited to sit down and chat all things mini rugby and a bit of new tackle height stuff, so for sure.
Yeah, nice. So what's been going on at the moment? What's happening? You're obviously Bats development officer for a number of years now, loads of experience.
Yeah, been down at Bats since 2007, so been here a few years, evolved over the time. Currently working with Ross Young, who's down here as well, and Fraser McCaslin, who mainly leads on our primary programme, and he's put some pretty substantial programme together, and we'll probably chat a bit about that later, but we're going to change that and evolve that a little bit for this coming season as we go. I also coach down here at Embrackes at a senior level, but I suppose as a dad, where my main focus on mini rugby is I'm down at Preston Lodge Pirates with my son Archie. So.
Nice, cool. So a great spectrum of experience there, from the Premiership into rugby development, and then at the forefront where it all happens, P3 going into P4.
P3 going into P4 next year. So
yeah.
That transition between touch, tag, into tackle, where are they at the moment? The excitement of we're going to get to tackle someday, to the realisation of maybe we've started dabbling with a bit of wrestling and a few things like that, to the realisation of there's a bit of body contact here, how's that going to go? So it's quite an exciting period, and quite a fun period at the moment as we're sort of falling away from the P3 season.
So just on that, like, obviously some kids are probably mad keen to get into tackling, some maybe aren't thinking about it, some are maybe sort of a wee bit concerned about it. Where would you sort of sit on that?
I think like probably twofold. As a group of players, as a dad, at Pure Pirates, and through my work, I think there is always a huge enthusiasm for contact rugby, tackling. Then there's probably the realisation point that sets in. There's those that really like the idea of it, and they give it a go, and they maybe shy away. There are those that are just 100 miles an hour, and that is exactly what they want to do from the very start. And then there are those that are just completely standoffish, I would say. And it's finding that balance, I think, is probably where we are and what we're looking at in our various different guises as into how can we make sure that we're catering for all and to keep all them in, so we're not having that drop out because we're only going to do tackle and that's it, because we're now going to do four, if that makes sense.
It's a really important point, isn't it? Because tackling is just a part of the game. So we've chatted beforehand, and me and Scott chatted to you, Bertie, about what the vision is for Mini Rugby moving forward, and some great ideas. So what sort of things you've done this year? So obviously you worked as a development officer, you've been through a few age grade law variation changes, but you've kind of been really passionate about certain tools to help you prepare players and get them involved. So do you want to just chat us through what you've been trying out?
So this year, specifically probably more so with our younger age groups, club-wise, but more so in the PL Pirates scene on a Sunday, we've got a real range of kids. Some move really well, some don't. Every club has them. They're evolving at different age groups. But we just found that maybe those players that weren't so dominant, didn't get the ball all the time, weren't having the best time. We found that when we were playing against other teams, as fixtures came thick and fast, from primary 1 and 2, where it's just learn a bit about playing tag and catching a ball and moving in different directions, to all of a sudden you're into P3 at the very start, and you're straight down to play a touch tournament that for those really dominant players, it just became a bit of a push fest for a lot of them. And then those less dominant players began to stand further and further back and get less and less involved. So we actually, it was through talking with a friend who was over from New Zealand. They emigrated out there just before COVID, and chatting about how much their kids love Ripper Rugby. And we thought, well, I kind of just had the thought of, well, why don't we try tag rugby again? More around of there's something tangible.
Yeah.
So there's something really obvious that becomes an offside line. There's something really obvious that becomes a tackle. You know, it's not just a two-handed touch per chance on sort of shoulder to waist height. So we've tried to sort of evolve that over time, and I think one of the biggest things we've found is just the involvement of all of our players. It's maybe taken away that risk contact element to the game that we've found that the players have begun to understand game sense a bit more. So run forwards, you know, don't run backwards and away from opposition players. Run to space, pass to space a bit more, because they can see the value in that instead of just running 2 steps and being touched again, running 2 steps and being touched again. So that's evolved a fair bit over this season. We've had a real positive impact from that with our numbers. Our numbers have grown, but also just I think with how much our kids have come on in terms of understanding the game of rugby. Because you're right, the tackle is such a small part, but it's a really important part to get right.
Definitely.
You know, and in some ways, tag rugby maybe develops those players that little bit quicker.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking from, you know, a skill focused element where, you know, the focus has to be on around the hip area where there's a lot of clues on how people are going to move. I've seen some kids trying to be sneaky and keep their hips away from where the tackles are going, or the tags are going to come in.
Which is good. That's evasion, isn't it? How to move your hips as well.
That, you know, there's probably more of an S&C focus around that, about being strong through that area and being able to evade and dodge, and actually to run forward and square up, you know, maybe means if you can attack one side that there's only one tag available to get you. So and then the coordination aspect of the fine motor skills where they're having to get close enough, be able to sort of identify which hand they're using to reach down and then to actually be able to grab something. There's definitely tons of transfer from that.
Yeah, look, I think if you break it down, there's a lot of value in it. I think, like, if you look at where we're going with tackle height, quite rightly, you know, we're straight away from the get-go, you know, teaching our kids to get low to hip level, or sometimes even lower, because that tag goes from, you know, hip to sort of mid-thigh, even knee, depending on the height.
Keep forgetting how big the tags are with kids, don't you?
Really long. Some kids are halfway down the calf, so they can still get there. But you're right, there's a tracking element to that as well. They've got to fixate their eyes on something tangible that they can grab. But then also, like, if you take it back, like, they've got to hand it back. You know, they can't just throw it away. So there's a respect element in there as well. You know, there's a bit of teammanship in there. You know, camaraderie between. You've got to give that tag back to your opposition.
Definitely.
You can't just throw it away or whatever, or the game will get stopped. So there is that element to it as well. There's a whole sort of different spectrum to it. I think that's worked in there. But fundamentally, we just wanted to give our kids the opportunity to run with the ball, to attack, to try and score tries. And we found that some of our kids, through just playing touch, were maybe not getting that opportunity because those dominant players inevitably just...
It's a very quick game, isn't it, touch? Very evasive. But if you're not as elusive, you can still run straight towards a gap, and even if you, like, someone can try to get a tag off you and not maybe make it, so it gives value to that player as well. And we're aware of that when we're creating all the Blueprint games, that some of them are maybe leaned towards evasive and quick plays, but we're also trying to build an element so that the kind of like player who is just developing that has an element to have success. And I think that's, as you say, is a massive part of it. Just reshifts a bit what success is, isn't it? Rather than just that stopping someone. Sorry, that's a high tackle now.
And there's something, to me, there's something visual there. So there's no, he touched me. No, he didn't. You know, there is none of that. It's like, no, he's tagged you because he has the tag in his hand. So there's a real visual aspect to it, and it's really clear, it's
Yeah.
cut and dry. I think what we've found as well is that by doing that and by our players having that confidence to run forward, it's allowed that game sense of a defensive line and attacking line, passing to space, using the whole pitch
Yeah.
to come into fruition a bit more, and we've seen them use that a little bit more instead of just almost, you know, sometimes play organised touch rugby yourself.
Yeah.
Let's initiate our own touch, you know, bang bang, and you know,
It's a weird
it
concept.
Can be funny, but
Yeah.
there can be weird concepts in primary 3 as
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
which
yeah.
You raise your eyebrow at times, but you know, just trying to allow them to get that free flowing element of play. And Scotty's right, you know, you do get elements, and I see it all the time where they're running forward, but they're moving their hips. But that ability to run forward and keep square and move your hips and keep away, what a great skill for them to be able to develop, you know, at such a young age.
Just like you back in the day with your snake hips, was it?
No, run straight, and if anybody big runs at you, kick it as fast as you can.
Nice. Well, problem solving there. But it's interesting just to hear you chatting about like sort of an overarching theme for, you know, your P3s, and we're trying to bring in a few, you know, nudges towards having that throughout the age groups within minis. So P3, for example, would be hands on ball. P4 would be confidence in contact and keeping the ball alive. P5, refining their core skills a little bit. If they're going to be refining things, they have to have tried a lot previously. So they have to have an understanding of that. There's a little bit more depth in that statement. And then P6 would be developing a little bit more of a contest because we're allowing them to challenge for the ball.
Yeah,
on
the
ground.
breakdown for the first time.
And then P7 would be ready for the big game where numbers are going to increase. The chaos is going to, you know, come in. Not that P3 isn't chaotic, Ian. Don't get me wrong on that, because it can be pretty wild out there. But
It should be.
Yeah, just on this, like from a skill development focus in terms of like numbers on field, for example. Like what would be your philosophy on that?
Look, I think if I'm brutally honest, anything that we can do to get more kids more touches.
Yeah.
I think sometimes quite a lot of the time we see, you know, if we've got an uneven number of players or 12 players or whatever, we'll just automatically go 66, 14, 77, you know, 8v8 and gradually as we go, but we never think to go 3v3, 2v2.
What's the experience on the pitch?
You know, 4v4 or you know, and reduce it and have multiple pitches going. And I think to me, it's certainly a route that we would use a lot at a senior level to develop those things. So why should we not be doing that, you know, at youth and particularly at a mini level?
Yeah.
You know, we want our players to touch the ball, to get confidence in the ball. We want our players to have confidence in beating a defender. You know, just to get all those aspects of evasion and everything into the game. So the more space that we can give them, the better opportunity they're going to have to do that. I mean, you see that with 7-a-side rugby. You know.
Yeah.
You know, you're halving the number of players on a main pitch in the adult game, and in some ways it's far more exciting. So can we give that opportunity to our younger players? I think if that's something we should be looking at, then for sure. It's certainly something we do a lot of. 3v1s, 4v1s, pig in the middle sort of games.
Yeah.
The encouragement to pass to space maybe before moving, but move as well. Just try and keep that ball moving all the time.
That's how you create excitement and engagement in the sport, isn't it? Like, you want to go to training and just have as many tags and touches and runs as you can, and it's something that we see. What's that? Tries, yeah. And it's a training tool, so I think it's just we're trying to get coaches to think like you do it in training. That's the way, because you want it like lots of ball in play time in training. So let's try to see how we can do that within a game. And we were lucky enough to have Christoph from the Belgian FA come to Moyfield to talk at our coaching comps last year. One of the big things they changed in their football pathway was they started out at under 7 at 1v1. Simple as that, like learn to just dribble, then 2v2 and 3v3, but like loads of little pitches, and you kind of represent your club by having 10 different people playing an individual match at the same time.
Yeah, and I think a big eye-opener for me was we had a regional development day just coming out of COVID a couple of years ago now, and we had Chalky along from Hearts and the street games, and it was a real eye-opener of that afternoon, just seeing how much you can adapt if you're willing to, of what the practices that you're doing that are still in essence the game of rugby, but they're just different rules and mechanisms around it. but real low numbers on lots of touches.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a real eye-opener to probably myself and some of the colleagues here, just around about how can we do things a little bit differently.
It definitely got us talking, didn't it, when we were thinking about the future of the game, and it's a concept that we'll be looking to explore, I think, won't we? Just about, how we can nudge coaches towards thinking about the stuff that you're doing with your coaches at the Pirates.
I was just going to say it sort of leads us into how we might draw a little bit more attention onto certain skills that the players are displaying. So one of the things that we'll be bringing in for sort of P345 would be focus of a 3-2-1 scoring system. We've trialled it a couple of times at a couple of mini events and had some really good feedback. And also big up to Curry Chieftains, who have been using it in training quite a lot as well. And basically the rationale behind it would be that the first try a player would score would be worth 3, the second would be worth 2, the last one would be worth 1. And if you actually break that down a wee bit, obviously it then creates more points, but also if a player is on 3 tries and obviously can only score 1 point, it's down to them to facilitate players who potentially haven't got 3 points for the benefit of the team.
Mm-hmm.
So we were mentioning sort of our values and our I suppose our Scott skills a wee bit and how we can bring this to life, and it would just be to gauge sort of what your thoughts on that would be, Bertie, on how like players who maybe not scoring as many points for a team and how that can maybe be built into engaging them a wee bit more in sessions.
Yeah, look, I think to me it's a fairly logical step forward. In essence, it's probably just a more structured way within the laws than saying you've got to pass twice, or 3 times or 4 times before somebody can score, because ultimately that is what you're trying to do by doing that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's an element of problem solving within it for your players as well, which I think can only help as they get through the age groups and get older. We're asking them to think a little bit about how many who's scored, how do we get more points. Well, there might be actually Scotty, you scored 1 try, James has scored 2, right? Well, let's try and get that ball to Scotty so we can get some more points within this game, and how are we going to do that, and what's the best position for him to be in, or where's the best place for him to put himself to allow that to happen. So look, I think to me, it's just a good logical progression of probably what a lot of good practices already happen.
Yeah.
And that I see it a lot going to do coaching essential courses and stuff, that we see a lot through adapting the steps and stuff as we go through that process. So to me it's pretty logical.
Cool.
Yeah, I think the other thing we'd look to try to maybe score games. So I think it's really important to keep score, but it's how we act on that off the back of the result is maybe not quite the right word I'm looking for, because I don't think we really have like results in mini rugby. You have outcomes. So if the outcome is one team score more points than the other, then it's maybe a conversation starter with the players. How could we have maybe scored more points within that game? Another thing we'd like to sort of add in would be the focus on having points for maybe different skills or events that happen in the game. For example, maybe 2 or 3 passes before a tackle. And obviously then the knock-on effect of that is that there's more players touching the ball, which we've chatted about, but also more width in the play, which challenges the defence and makes them self-organise a little bit more and not get too focused on one-out rugby. Anything else that you maybe think would work with your P3, P4s?
If you can measure anything with them other than the score, what would you measure?
I think the biggest thing for me is probably trying to encourage them always to put the ball to space.
Yeah.
But also, what are they doing after that? Are they then putting themselves into space? Are they able to get involved in the game? And perhaps the focus a bit more. Well, it's great that we can look at the scoring system of the skill levels and different things that they're doing. On the flip of that can also, through the right medium, give coaches a real focus for through the week of what they're maybe going to do the following week.
Yeah, definitely.
Or whatever, because maybe that becomes more apparent on the weekends when they're not playing. Because we can see that a bit more in our training time, and then the output is the game that they're playing the following week, for example. And is that coming to fruition? Are we seeing that from our individuals, what we're doing? what are our scores like from that? There's maybe something again that's tangible that we're getting from that game that isn't just the result, because the result isn't, the result is there. It's important. The kids love that, but that the result can be mirrored in so many different avenues, and sometimes we focus solely on tries scored, who's won, but a lot of the time, we have to mirror that with other. How many passes did we make in the day? How many times did one of our lesser players score? And so how many times did we get that player on the ball? How many times did we pass to space? How many times did we run forwards, not backwards?
Yeah.
It could be something as simple as that. Particularly at P2, P3, P4. You catch the ball and the first direction is back the way. So are those skills that we're looking to score? Are we putting them over correctly in our training to allow them to get the best results? I
love the idea of almost having like an internal kind of like league table for us against ourselves. So like, and you say, I think so. Basically, at Curry, we gave each of the clubs like a skills card to kind of mark whatever they wanted. So at P4, it might be how many times we actually tackle to the ground rather than tackle hold. It might be when we go to ground, how many times did we pop off the floor. But I like the way that it ties in that long-term development aspect with training, not just for a game, but regardless of the result, we can still have our own little, like, did we beat our tackle score, did we beat our offload score, or
I think
things
as
like
coaches,
that.
If we just focus on these aspects of scoring on game day, then we're never going to develop our kids to be better at them. But it can give us a real focus through the week to
definitely
to find out, well, what did we not. What did Curry Chieftains think that we didn't score that well at this week? Well, let's go away and work at that, and then when we play them again another tournament, have we improved on that, or can we collaborate a little bit more on that? Or you'll have your local teams that you'll play against more often. Is there an opportunity to do a lot more collaborative stuff there? Score
each other's teams as well, so there's a bit of objective feedback.
Yeah, to be open to receiving that sort of feedback. But
that is brilliant.
Just as we're sort of chatting, the wee ones, we're trying to build, as much context around why we're doing things as well. And one thing would be drawing attention to it from maybe using their experiences of the games that they've played in, but then trying to mirror that with the context that we can build into training, and a focus of having the game being an event, so hugely enjoyable, hugely memorable. If we can have more kids having great experiences, that then connects them more to the game in terms of their buy-in on why they're maybe doing that, because it's easy for us as adults to observe and see what's happening, but for the kids to actually experience it and know what we are expecting them of them as well. And one way is maybe scoring it, one way is encouraging it. Lots of different ways to go about this, but I think we're maybe getting on to time there. So
I think we've blethered a long time.
Blethered a lot. Good blether about Mini Rugby. I think there's more to come with this. I think we might need a follow-up one. But just Iain, thanks very much. Bertie, I don't often call you Iain.
No, don't call me Iain.
Bertie, thank you very much.
We'll put in brackets Bertie, just
Bertie,
for the sake of the blether.
Bertie from Bats and the PL Pirates. Big up the PL Pirates.
Great
I love
name.
that theme as well. The Pirates. Why are you called that? Because we are. Is that a joke, or maybe a wee joke to think?
It's by the seaside.
There might be more to it, but because we are sounds pretty.
I think we need to wrap up on that.
Yeah, we'll finish on that. But, thanks very much for tuning in, and as always, like any feedback, if we stick a tweet up, just chuck it in and retweet and engage. That'd be class. But thanks again. Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Cheers.